Hey all, Theme Park Ogre here. It's been a while. I thought I'd do a quick channel update as there's quite a few things to talk about. I've had quite an eventful couple of weeks, let me tell you. As you may know, my family and I recently took a holiday to Japan. We've been back for nearly a week, but I haven't been to the local parks yet. Actually, I haven't really done much at all. I've just spent most of my time recovering. Let's get into what happened. So yeah, the trip started out well. We went from Brisbane to Osaka, Japan via a small layover in Hong Kong. It was so exciting being back on the road again. Very surreal in a good way. You know, hard to believe it was actually happening. We arrived in Osaka in the early morning and it was a free day with nothing planned. After checking in at the hotel, we took a little ferry over to the Osaka Aquarium, which is something I'd been wanting to do for a long time. Mainly because they have whale sharks. It was an amazing aquarium and seeing whale sharks for the first time in person was a dream come true. They were beautiful. We also explored the surrounding area, including a Japanese shopping centre, which was pretty interesting and it was cool doing something new. Next we had a couple of days at Universal Japan. It was great getting back to this park, especially now that we had more experience and knew what to expect after our visit last year. Or at least I thought we knew what to expect, as we didn't really get much done that day due to long queues and subpar planning on my part. But still, it was overall a fun day, and I got a couple of new coaster credits. There was the new Snoopy coaster, a really fun indoor Vekoma family coaster, which may honestly be the smoothest coaster in the world. And we finished the day by riding the new Donkey Kong coaster, Minecart Madness, which was a lot of fun. I barely missed this on my last trip, and getting to actually ride it was a dream come true and so worth it. I loved it. The next day was Halloween, October 31st, and the weather decided to be cheeky and rain all day. Literally all day. It didn't stop. I'm usually a big fan of rainy days, but for one reason or another it just didn't gel with me that day. I started with high spirits, but contrary to what my inner me wanted to feel, I just wasn't feeling good spiritually. You know, it may have been the jet lag or the lack of food. Japan isn't the best when you're a picky vegetarian. But yeah, anyway, I just wasn't really feeling it, which is really weird for me. It didn't help that most of the outdoor rides were closed. Donkey Kong, for example, was literally closed all day. I also had trouble fitting on some of the rides, which didn't help my spirits. You know, I've put on a lot of weight this year, as it's been a hard one for my family due to some terrible personal losses. And sadly, I didn't fit on the Hollywood Dream Coaster test seat, which really sucked as I adored the ride last trip. There was also an embarrassing moment in the Yoshi's Adventure ride queue where the attendant at the entrance noticed that I was fat. He closed the queue and led me to the test seat to see if I fit, which was pretty embarrassing as there were literally about 100 people just standing there waiting for the guy to check me in the seat. I honestly would have preferred to do the walk of shame then and experience that. I did fit, but it shook me up enough that I didn't even bother attempting to get on the Mario Kart ride in case something similar happened. I also had the clever idea of riding the Jurassic Park ride in the rain with no poncho, and as you can imagine, due to the rain and the wetness of the ride itself, I got drenched. Spending the rest of the day walking around in soaking wet clothes wasn't exactly the most fun and quickly got very uncomfortable. Oops. We then had a memorable dinner at the Saido Japanese restaurant. Even thinking about it is making me nauseous. You may be able to guess what happens next. I woke up the next morning, feeling a lot better spiritually. You know, it was a nice day outside and I was ready to do my all to have a really fun last day at the park. But then I quickly felt a sickly feeling in my stomach. Oh no, I thought to myself. Maybe I can shake it off, but nope. Long story short, 5 minutes later I was feeling very sick and was vomiting on both ends, so to speak. Don't you hate when that happens, being sick while on holiday? It's bad enough at home, but so much worse when you've paid thousands of dollars to have a well-earned break. I spent the whole day in bed feeling miserable. It was bad enough that I was starting to have fever-like visions and I couldn't even sleep it off. It wasn't the best time, let me tell you, and I don't recommend it. And it sadly got worse as later in the day, nearly everyone else in my group also caught the same bug or whatever it was with the exact same symptoms. Oh dear. In the end, we had to extend our time in Osaka by 2 whole days. Luckily, we could also extend our rooms, but this sucked up a ton of the time we had planned to use in Tokyo. I'm not sure exactly what we caught, but I think the norovirus is the most likely suspect. Either way, I can't look at Japanese food now without feeling nauseous. Hopefully this hasn't scarred me for life. The next day, I was finally feeling well enough to go outside again, unlike nearly everyone else in my group who were basically a day behind me. So me and Mr. YumYum, who somehow managed to completely avoid the sickness so far, decided to go out for the afternoon and try to salvage what we could from our remaining time. We took the ferry again and headed back to the area by the aquarium and did some exploring, which was actually really fun. You know, it was interesting seeing the real Japan, so to speak. That evening, I was feeling well enough to pop back into Universal for a goodbye. You may think it's weird paying full price for park tickets for just a 4-hour visit, but that's what us theme park weirdos do. I had a much better visit that night. It was the last day of the Halloween event, and the park was much quieter than the previous nights, so we really got to enjoy the Halloween scare actors without being surrounded by thousands of people. This was my first ever scary Halloween event, and surprisingly I enjoyed it. We also got some fun rides in, like Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, which was awesome to get back on. And yup, I'm glad I fit. It was then time to finally leave Osaka. We weren't all feeling 100%, but we were well enough to finally leave our rooms and head on the bullet train to Tokyo. I love the bullet train, or Shinkansen. It's more than your usual public transport and feels like a proper attraction by itself. You know, going that fast and seeing so many sights in such a short amount of time, such as Mount Fuji, which we got a really good view of. We arrived in Tokyo and headed straight to the Tokyo Disney Resort, which was very exciting. Our original 5 days planned here had shrunk to 3 days, but still that's enough time to properly enjoy the parks if you're efficient. First was Tokyo Disneyland. We had just 1 day here. I channeled my inner theme park ogre and tried to make our schedule as efficient as possible. This actually worked pretty well. We got a lot accomplished and we did a ton of rides, but sadly the lack of time caught up to us and we did still miss out on some stuff like Big Thunder Mountain and the Haunted Mansion. And yes, even Beauty and the Beast. The sad thing about this ride is we had it all planned. You know, we booked the fast passes earlier in the day to secure our ride on it, but the ride decided to break down just as we got into the queue. And as this was at the end of the day, they didn't reopen it, which I'm still gutted about. Especially as some of my family are massive Beauty and the Beast fans and have yet to ride it. The next day was a visit to what many, myself included, consider to be the best themed park in the world, Tokyo DisneySea. I was so excited to visit this park again, and especially excited to see some of my family's first reaction to it, and then those family members felt sick and decided to stay in the room. Oh joy. It thankfully wasn't the same virus or whatever it was as before, but either way they weren't feeling great and just wanted to stay in bed. After receiving their blessing, only a couple of us ended up visiting the park, which was weird doing it without them, but still it made sense to use the time, you know? We did have a pretty good day still though. We had a relaxing, slow-paced walk around the park and got a few rides in, including a couple I missed out on last trip like Aquatopia and the Finding Nemo ride, and I was lucky enough to snag some midday fast passes for the ever popular Frozen ride in Fantasy Springs, which is insanely popular and almost always has a 2-hour plus queue. It even sometimes reaches 400-minute queues, which is bonkers. Good ride though. I was feeling well enough myself at first, but as the day went on, I started to develop a mild cough and started feeling weak and achy. Can you see where this is going? The next day, thankfully, everyone in my group was feeling good enough and well enough to enjoy the park. Except yours truly. My cough had developed into something worse. You know, I think a cold or something similar. I was feeling very coughy, very tired, had lots of yucky stuff coming out, all that fun stuff, you know. As it was our last day in Japan, we couldn't really add any more time, and I really wanted to see some of my group's first reaction to the park, so I pressed on and visited with them, which in retrospect probably wasn't the best idea, as throughout the entire day I felt awful, you know, tired, unwell, I just couldn't enjoy it. I spent most of my day just sitting there sleeping and feeling sorry for myself. Not the best way to enjoy the world's best themed park, and for me personally, this was probably the worst day of the trip. Even watching motor coaster videos didn't help. The next day it was time to leave Japan for our last destination, a return to Hong Kong. Unlike earlier, which was a quick layover, this time we'd be spending a couple of days in Hong Kong Disneyland, which has quickly grown into a family favourite. I was feeling a lot better that morning and well enough to travel. I got on the plane, popped on Toy Story 3 and Coco and just drifted in and out of consciousness. But as the flight went on, I quickly felt the strength I had regained disappear and I wasn't feeling well again. Oh no. By the time we arrived in Hong Kong, I felt awful. I wasn't able to enjoy the travel experience and I just wanted to sleep. Oh dear. This part of the trip feels like a blur to me, but we did eventually get to Hong Kong Disney, and I just immediately collapsed on the bed and slept like a Snorlax in a sleeping contest. The next day I woke up and sadly still felt pretty bad. Learning from my awful last day at DisneySea, and not really wanting to pass on whatever I had to other people, I decided to stay at the hotel and try to recover as much as I could. Coincidentally, one of my family members had a small crisis at work work, so they had to stay behind anyway to fix it on the phone, so they kept me company while the rest of the group visited the park. I felt really bad for them, first sickness and then work issues. It wasn't the best time for them either, especially as this person in particular had never visited Hong Kong Disneyland. Luckily later that night I was feeling a lot better and the work issue had been resolved, so we headed into the park for a very enjoyable 3 hours, which again we paid full price for, but it was worth it. I love Hong Kong Disneyland, it's such a charming park. Very small, but it makes up for it with so much character and some fantastic rides, like the incredible Mystic Manor and the really fun Big Grizzly Mountain Runaway Minecarts, which were the only rides we did that night. The next day was our last day of the trip, and sadly once again I wasn't feeling the best again. It felt like all the strength I'd gained the previous day just vanished. My family group decided, even though it'd be pretty expensive, to add one more day to the trip, to make up for all the time we had consecutively lost. Which ironically used up most of the day to replan, but at least I was able to rest up a bit. I was personally against this, as I thought it would be best to, save the money for the future and make the most of what we had, but it's done now, and I did appreciate even having slightly more time. The rest of the day was decent. While I was better than that awful last day at Tokyo DisneySea, I still wasn't feeling 100% well, and I really did try, but I just couldn't enjoy the rest of the day properly. I still felt tired, flat, and unwell, and to be honest, by this time I was starting to feel really unhappy about the trip as a whole, with the bad days now outweighing the good. It was then our final 100% last day of the trip, no more time or budget left to extend it again, so we had to enjoy what we could of the park and make the most of it. And I'm sad to say, once again, I wasn't feeling the best, and try as I might, I just couldn't enjoy my last day. Now don't get me wrong, there were some fun moments, and I did enjoy parts, but going to freaking Disneyland where you don't feel well was such an awful feeling. That night I was exhausted and couldn't even enjoy the final momentous show. I basically just stood there like a zombie, and sadly not one of the dancing zombies from Universal. I was just feeling awful, both mentally and physically, and I left the park without even taking a second glimpse of the castle, which for me is crazy. I was just feeling that out of it and just wanted to get to bed. For the flight home I wasn't feeling 100%, but I was well enough to travel. 10 hours or so later we arrived back in Brisbane, said goodbye to the group, split up and headed home. Usually when I get back from a trip, I'm full of energy and excited to get back on track with my life, but this time not really. I wasn't feeling it physically or mentally, sadly. Even now I still don't feel 100%, as you can probably tell in my voice. I still have a mild cough and a lack of appetite, but I am slowly getting better every day. I still feel sad about what went wrong with the trip. I think I was sick in some way about 70% of the time. It just wasn't the best time for me, sadly. Now don't get me wrong, I did enjoy the trip and I made some lovely memories with my family. I know how lucky I am to have gone and I don't take any of it for granted, but still having such a large percentage of it get ruined by sick days and other issues really hurts, especially when you know all the work and money and time that went into making the trip happen. It felt like a lot of it was a waste, paying hundreds of dollars to sit in a hotel room feeling sick. It's not what I was originally planning, let me tell you that. I've spent the last few days recovering, both physically and mentally. I haven't felt well enough to even check my emails or log into my theme park channel, but I'm nearly back to normal now and have slowly made peace with the trip, which making this video has helped a lot with, as it's helped me to process my thoughts and put all the good things and bad things into perspective. I'm hoping the next big trip I take, whenever and wherever that is, goes better. Let's just say that I'm going to do my best to avoid getting sick next time. I'm also really looking forward to getting back on the saddle and revisiting the local theme parks. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming up with Scooby-Doo, King Claw, Christmas events, and other surprises, so I hope you look forward to that. There's also more content coming from the trip, not as much as I originally intended, as honestly a lot of the time I was too sick to film, but I did film enough for a couple of vlogs and some future Ogre Talkies videos, so please look forward to those. As always, thank you for watching, thank you for your support, and a big thank you to my YouTube members, the Ogre Bros and the Ogre Sisters, for your kind support. Thank you for watching. Please consider watching another of my videos. I'll be sure to see you there. Have a great rest of your day. Ogre and out. Sorry.